Hey everyone, welcome to our tutorial. Today we will be teaching you how to transform any old pair of jeans into a mini skirt with matching leg warmers. We've designed this tutorial to be as accessible as possible. Whether you're a visual learner, an auditory learner, or someone who likes to follow written instructions, we've got you covered. You'll have access to a written guide, an audible walkthrough, as well as step-by-step video demonstrations. Plus, this is an interactive tutorial, so if you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to reach out because we are here to help. Before we dive in, I just want to quickly go over our legal disclaimer for this tutorial. Please do not redistribute any of the content from this video. If someone asks you where you got the tutorial, we'd really appreciate it if you could direct them to our Patreon. It helps support us so much as a small business. And if you share your finished product, don't forget to tag us. We would love to see your work. So as far as materials go for this project, you will definitely need some pins, a measuring tape or a ruler, a rotary cutter or scissors, and optionally you could have a seam ripper and fabric chalk, although it is not necessary. And obviously you will need a sewing machine. You can use any kind of sewing machine really, but if you're looking for any recommendations, I highly recommend this one that I use. It's super great for beginners, and you're obviously going to need a pair of jeans to rework. It can be any cut, any style. Personally, I got this pair from the thrift store for about $6. So the first step is to cut 2 to 3 inches below the crotch seam on the front and back. However, if you are using a rotary cutter, try not to cut both the front and the back at the same time because ideally we'd want the back to be a little bit longer than the front. And don't worry about this line being super straight because we're going to do more cutting. So this part is somewhat optional. If you don't want a seam rip or if you don't have a seam ripper, that's completely fine. You don't have to. I just like to do it for precision purposes. And so once you're done, you're just going to want to mark where you want your skirt length to be. And this is a made-to-measure pattern. It's different for everybody. Everybody is a different size. So take a ruler or a measuring tape to your body, see how long you want your skirt to be, and then leave a mark where you want to cut with seam allowance in mind. So for example, if you were planning on making a skirt that was about 7 inches, you would want to make a mark at 8 inches to leave an extra inch for us to hem, because if you forget to leave seam allowance, your skirt is going to end up a lot shorter than you intend for it to. And you don't have to be super specific with whether you leave an inch for seam allowance or a little bit less. It kind of depends on the thickness of your denim. My denim is super thin, so I didn't need to leave much room for seam allowance. And also, I was planning on having a micro mini skirt anyways, so it's completely up to you. So now we're going to be actually making the mark in our fabric of where we want our skirt to be cut. You can use fabric chalk like I am, but if you don't have fabric chalk, that's okay. You can use pencil or a washable marker, whatever you can get your hands on. And do not forget to leave an inch for seam allowance. The distance from the top of the skirt to where this mark is should be the total length that you want your skirt to be, plus an inch so that we can hem it without your skirt becoming unexpectedly too short. And once again, this line does not have to be straight. Try your best, but you can always take a measuring tape from the top of the skirt to the bottom across this line to make sure it's the same length. So as far as cutting goes, I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory, but you're just going to want to take your scissors or your rotary cutter and cut all the way across the mark that you made. But please note, if you are using a rotary cutter like I am, you should probably put something inside of your skirt to separate the front and back so that you don't accidentally cut through both the front and the back at the same time. Because like I said before, we want our back to be a little bit longer than the front for extra coverage. So now I'm just going to be repeating the same exact process that I did for the front for the back. The only thing that I like to do different for the back is I leave an extra half an inch to an inch for additional coverage, but it's completely up to you. So now that we've cut both the front and the back of the skirt, you can trim it up a little bit if you'd like to, but I don't really recommend it considering looks can be deceiving and we're going to be hemming it anyway, so this line does not need to be perfect by any means. So now it's time to pin our project. So the first thing you're going to want to do is flip your skirt inside out because we will be sewing from the inside out. So now we're going to be actually pinning our skirt to hem it, and this is why we left that seam allowance. So basically, for example, if you left a seam allowance of 1 inch, you're going to want to fold this hem so that you lose that 1 inch. And also, if it helps you any, you can use fabric chalk to make a mark 1 inch above the bottom of the fabric all the way across the skirt so that you know exactly where you want to lose this length at. But it's completely up to you. I didn't do it, but it definitely helps for beginners if you want a little guide. But yeah, you just make your hem and then you stick your pins through it so that we can sew it with ease. So now that we're done pinning our hem, this part is optional, but I like to take a measuring tape from the top of my skirt to the very bottom of my hem to first make sure that my skirt is the length that I intended it to be, and to make sure that my hem is even all the way across. So now we're going to be actually securing this hem down with our sewing machine. This is the part that I enjoy. I don't enjoy the preparation as much, so I hope you enjoy this part as well. But as far as settings go, I used a stitch length of 3, and I used a zigzag stitch as well as a denim needle. You can use whatever you want. It depends on your sewing machine. It depends on your fabric and your preferences, but those are the settings that I use for reference. So self-explanatory, but you just remove pins as you go down. Try to keep the line straight so that you don't waver off where the hem is, but you can always take your project out and restart if need be. So this part is obviously completely optional. You do not have to iron your project by any means, but once I finish my project, I like to iron it because it's super satisfying and makes it look super clean. So for the leg warmers, you can use any part of the excess pant leg that you like, but I chose to use the thigh part so that it gives a bell bottom effect. And once again, this pattern is completely made to measure. Everybody's a different height, so it depends on how tall you are that you want your leg warmers to be. So you can just take a measuring tape to your leg, decide wherever you want your leg warmer to end at, and also I only hem the top of this. You can hem the bottom as well, but make sure you leave a little bit of give room for that seam allowance for the hem. So now you just want to go in with your rotary cutter or your scissors to cut the mark that you made for your desired length for your leg warmers. And once again, like I said, I only hem the top of this because that's where I'm going to be putting the buckles for the adjustable straps. But if you want to hem the bottom as well, go for it, be my guest. Just make sure you leave a little bit of extra space on the top and the bottom for that seam allowance. But I only left room on the top because, like I said, that's the only place I'm going to be hemming these. So just as we did for the skirt, we're going to be sewing these from the inside out. So make sure you flip your leg warmers inside out before you start pinning for this hem. And don't worry about the circumference of the top of your leg warmer matching your calf or your knee, wherever you want it to end, because we're going to be making adjustable straps with buckles, like I said. So you do not need to worry at all about that, because you're going to be able to pull the adjustable straps to fit yourself perfectly. So we're basically going to be repeating the same process that we did for the skirt with this hem. So say you left a seam allowance of 1 inch, you're going to want to fold up to lose that 1 inch once again. And you can use a little weight to hold down your fold if you like, or you can use fabric chalk to mark all the way across where you want your seam allowance to be, but that's completely up to you. I'm not a beginner, so I don't feel the need to do that, but if it helps you, then definitely make that mark with fabric chalk. So now once again, here's the fun part. We get to actually sew. It feels like in sewing projects, most of the time is spent on the preparation and the least amount of time is spent on the sewing. So try to enjoy this part. And once again, make the line as straight as you can so that you don't go past your hem and then you have to go back. But if you do, no biggie. When I was a beginner, it took me a lot of times to sew even somewhat straight. And you can always pull your project out and restart. But basically, you're just going to be sewing over this hemline and removing pins as you go along. And once again, I did use a zigzag stitch with a stitch length of 3, but like I said before, it depends on the thickness of your denim and your preferences as well. So now we're going to be making adjustable strap buckles. I chose to make 4 for each leg warmer, but it's completely up to you. And you can use whichever part of the excess fabric that you have left, but I chose to use the cuff of the original pant leg because I still have it left and I figured that it would look nice on the project. So now I'm going to be cutting these strap buckles into about 2 3/4 of an inch, but you can do whatever size you'd like. So if you're also going to be using the cuff of the original pant leg for these adjustable strap buckles, I definitely recommend taking a measuring tape or a ruler around the circle of that cuff to see how much your fabric will allow you to make. Luckily, mine allowed me to make the desired amount of 8 total and the desired length, but it's completely up to whatever you want to do as well as what your fabric will allow you to do. So I decided to cut out extra just in case, but you definitely do not have to. So I chose to place my strips about 1.5 inches down with some overhang fabric over top of it, but it's completely up to you once again. So for the placement of these strips, you can really do it wherever you'd like, but I thought they would work best if I placed them equally distant apart. So one on each of the seams on the left and the right of the leg, and in the middle and the middle of the back as well. So it's up to whatever aesthetic design you'd like, but you can copy mine and replicate it if you'd like. Just take a measuring tape, make sure they're equally apart, and you're good to go. So to stick a pin through each of these strips on both of the leg warmers, and in the next few steps, we will be actually sewing it down. So now we're going in with our sewing machine to secure these buckles down. Once again, you can use a zigzag stitch with a length of 3. However, it does not matter as much for these buckles as it did for the skirt and the leg warmers themselves. But you definitely want to make sure you reverse stitch at the beginning and the end so that these buckles do not come unhinged when you're feeding your core through. So the next line we're going to sew is near the top so that it can create a loop or a gap for our adjustable strap to feed through. Make sure the gap isn't too small or else it's going to be difficult for the strap to get through it, and be sure to reverse stitch. So the last line we'll be sewing for these buckles is on the overhang fabric. You simply fold it inwards and then sew a line near the bottom to create even a smaller loop. So this is what your finished buckles should look like, with about 1.5 inches downwards and then a little bit of overhang fabric over top folded inwards. So now we're moving on to the very last part of the project, which is making the adjustable straps. So for these straps, you could use ribbon, shoelace, whatever you want, but I wanted to make denim straps to make the leg warmers super cohesive, so if you want to do the same, feel free to follow along. So luckily my fabric does already have lines in it, but if yours doesn't, don't worry, you can use a ruler, fabric chalk if that helps you get a straight cut, but it doesn't need to be perfectly straight once again. So as far as length goes, I suggest making them as long as your excess fabric will allow you, because it's super easy to remove extra length and it's hard to add it. So more is better than less in this situation. And as far as width goes, I am cutting mine to be about 1.25 inches, and we're going to be folding this over itself in the next few steps. So this 1.25 inch turns into about 1/2 inch so that it'll fit through my buckle perfectly. So if you made a different measurement for your strap buckles, you're going to want to measure that gap to make sure that your final product of these straps will be able to fit through that. You might be wondering, why do we have 4 strips if we only want 2 straps, one for each leg warmer? Well, that's because we're going to be connecting 2 and 2 of these strips together. So to connect them, we're going to be layering one strip over the other with the right side of the fabric facing inwards. So if your denim is the same exact on the inside and out, that doesn't matter at all, but mine is different, so I wanted the right side of the fabric to be on the inside, and then I just simply stick a pin through it. So after pinning, you can have a glimpse at what your straps are going to be looking like. Like I said, we're still going to fold it in half, but this is why we wanted the right side of the fabric facing inwards so that it's cohesive throughout. So now you just want to sew a line over these 2 strips to connect them. You want to reverse stitch in the beginning and the end to make sure that this stays together well. And I'm using a zigzag stitch with a stitch length of 3 for this part as well. This is how it should look when you're done sewing. And now obviously, just repeat the same process for the other strip. So as you can see on the back side of the fabric, we have that little excess fabric. You can trim it up a little bit, but do not trim it too small because we're going to be sewing it down. So like I said, the wrong side of your fabric should be facing up, so you just want to insert this into your sewing machine, flatten those excess fabrics down, and make a line through each of them. Pinning is not necessary for this part since you can just kind of hold it down with your finger a little bit. Should be pretty easy, but this creates a super durable and secure adjustable strap. So this is how it should look when you are finished with these two stitches, and as you can see, it's super flat and super secure. Like I said earlier, our straps aren't actually going to be 1.5 inches like we cut our strips to be. They're going to be about 0.5 to 0.6 inches. So to do this, you want the wrong side of your fabric facing up, and you want to fold the bottom half inwards and then the top half over that inward fold. And we're doing this with the wrong side of the fabric facing up because when we make these folds, it's going to completely cover that wrong side of the fabric. So you just want to stick pins as you go because we are going to be sewing this shortly. So this is what your strap will look like when you are done pinning. Mine is about 1/2 inch to 0.6, but it depends on the measurement that you chose. So this will be our last time sewing for this project. I used a zigzag stitch with a stitch length of 3, but it doesn't matter as much for this part as it did for the skirt and the leg warmers once again. But you want to sew close to the edge, but you don't want to get too close in case you're not good at sewing straight, because then you're going to waver off and your stitches are not going to be secure and you'll have to go back. So congratulations, if you made it this far, that means you successfully made it through our tutorial. And now we just want to simply insert these straps into our buckles, and if it's a little tight, you can use a safety pin to get it through easier. So now this is what our finished leg warmer with our buckle and our adjustable strap should look like. And here it is, our fully finished project. I really hope you love the results of your work and that this tutorial helped you enhance your sewing skills and learn something new. If you're feeling confident and you want to take your skills to the next level, I highly recommend trying out our pleated mini skirt tutorial. It's a bit more challenging, but it's a great way to put your knowledge to the test. Don't forget to tag us in your finished projects. We can't wait to see what you create, and we love sharing your work and celebrating your progress. So here's a full list of our socials so you can stay connected with us. Be sure to follow along for more tutorials, updates, and inspiration. Just a quick reminder once again of our legal disclaimer. Please do not redistribute any of the content from this tutorial. If somebody asks you where you got it, we'd really appreciate if you could just direct them to our Patreon to support our work. And if you share your finished project, please don't forget to tag us because we'd love to see it. So thank you once again for respecting our work and your support in our small business. If you have any feedback or notes for us on this tutorial, please don't hesitate to email us. And once again, do not forget this is an interactive tutorial, so if you have any questions along the way, no matter how small or big, we are going to be here for you every step of the way. So please contact us on Instagram, on email, however works best for you. All of our socials are listed in the previous slide. Once again, thank you so much for joining us in this tutorial. We truly appreciate your support and hope you enjoyed the process. Your creativity and dedication mean so much to us, and we're so grateful to be part of your sewing journey, and we cannot wait to share more with you in the future.